once I take profit, just to see you know, if it goes for a little bit higher, I just let the rest ride, but I stop loss on the
Mhm.
positive,
Yeah,
and
I
that's it.
seen. I was reading your comments in there, like you're going to pushing the positive and then putting your stop loss at 25 and then letting it do what it does.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's. I mean, the key, man, is it's just a discipline. Like it's people don't understand it's compounding, right? Like if you can just stay winning, if you can just stay taking 25%, you will get, one, 5 out of 10 will run for two, 300, you
yeah,
know? But if you're just saying, okay, man, if I'm getting 25% every time, 10 times in a row, if I got $1,000 out there, I'm making my 250. You know what I mean?
mm,
And
yeah,
and that's what people don't understand. It's like, yeah, that's 2,500 a week,
yeah,
right? That's 100K a year. So it's like when we start, pushing, it's like, what do we do? Why are we pushing? Like that's the mentality, right? And you're kind of like, during the process, you're kind of one of those guys that come in. And it's like, you fire off and you're going crazy, and it's like sometimes it's hard when you see big gains to be like, all right, I'm gonna take a $250 gain when you have gains that go for 10, 20, 30,000. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's kind of like a whale mentality. It's like, you can't, the casinos always make money because whales come in and they come in hot, and they'll be betting crazy, and they'll make, three, 400,000 bucks in a couple hours, and then they try to slow play, right? And they keep winning, but they're only winning 10 grand. And then after a while, the whale's like, man, I should have, that would have been 100,000. And then all of a sudden you start betting big again, and the luck changes, and the averages change, and next thing you know, you get one hand gives back 10 wins.
yeah.
you know
Yeah, that's kind of that's kind of where I am, where I was. I'm still, I'm not perfect. I still have a couple losses and this and that, but I'm trying to get to those problems now. You know what I mean?
yeah, that's
Um, the thing is that sometimes I see them gains and I should just like once I close the position, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to get a little bit more, and that's when more times than not end up not working out, and that's what I need to just kind of learn from that, and just fix it. You know what I mean? Just that's it. Once I'm telling myself to have like a cool off period. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So once I finish the trade, I'm just gonna walk away and not go back to it and see anything. I'm just gonna walk away and then just come back a little bit later and then see what it's doing. You know what I mean?
So that, yeah, that's the so it's the ability, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because you get in and you pick. I mean, the thing is that we forget how we got the first trade, right? See, I'm watching you, and I noticed. Yeah, I'm always see people don't realize I'm watching how you guys are posting, so I understand where you're at. And the other day when you posted DYDX about the daily, I'm like, okay, this guy's learning. Like that's where you really see things. When you start looking at your dailies and you're like, man, hasn't seen a daily trend in 39 days.
Yeah,
That's when you know you guys like, all right, this he's starting to develop the overall game. Like that's critical for a guy like you, because that's kind of how you're playing your style, is that you're digging in. And a lot, and the mistakes is always this, right? And it's where people don't get it, is that right now it's all about volume, right? And it always
yeah,
will be. And the thing is that, once a coin does what it does, right? I mean, you got to remember, like, it's kind of like putting this in your mind. It's like, okay, I'm getting in this coin because I've been watching it, tracking it, and now it's starting to line up. Sometimes that could take an hour, 2 hours, even a day for us to happen. And then we get in the
mm-hmm.
trade, and we're in the trade, and we do 100%, and we make 500,000 bucks, and we're like, yeah, and then we sell out, and then the trade pulls back a little and starts to run again, and we're like, damn, there's even more, right? But what we
Yeah,
don't realize is that the first move is the only move we wanted, right? We wanted to get our 100% gains, or our 50% gains, or our 30, And that was the entire goal, is to find that piece of pie somewhere in the middle of the whole pie. And once it's done, then you have to just let it run its course, come back to where it's another trade, because this happens all the time. It's going to develop back into another trade again, and then we get in again and we take our 30 to 50% again, right? Where you get caught up is where you get in again and you catch that little bit of run and you're like, okay, there's another 50%. And then you ape in again and you don't realize that there's only so many buyers. You know what I mean? There's only
Yeah.
so much money, right? And that's why I'm always teaching you guys to go look at the market cap, because you have to be aware of how much money is in the market right now, right? If that market cap isn't moving, isn't constantly growing, then all the trades that you see happen, they have a limit. And once that limit is done, everybody's doing the same thing. They're collecting profits. And the guys who push the second or third trade are the bag holders, because there's an end to the money right now. And that's kind of where touching base on that, that's I'm glad you're like recognizing, because the hardest thing for people to do is realize that the majority of the time that you take the risk, 7 out of 10 times it doesn't work, right? And what happens is people only remember the 3 times it does. you know and they don't realize, like,
Right.
yeah, they don't realize the 3 times they pushed it, they might have made 100 or 200%, right? Let's give them a benefit. Let's give them 300%. Fuck it. But the 7 times they didn't work out, they lost 50. So they gave back 350 to 400%. And if the 3 times went crazy, they just all they did was break even.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like it's not worth the risk pushing profits, because the one thing you always have to say to your mind is a bunch of guys followed this trade like me, and if I took profits already once or twice, they have to take profits pretty soon. And after they're
Yeah.
done, then I'll come back to this trade if it's hot, and then we'll get back in this once it gives back that money. Because you just want to be in a position where you're constantly just those first steps that you're making, because that's what you're doing well, is you're making these first trades really well, and then you're chasing the trade. Like, just once you're in there, man, you get that money, just say, okay, I'll come back to you in a day or two. Let me see what happens to you, because the one thing they're guaranteed in crypto is they're always going to come back down.
Yeah.
They always pull back. They have to, because people have to take profits. Nobody's going to sit here and take the risk of wondering what will happen, right? Everything is profits.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was. But sometimes, I'm like, I mean, I feel like I need to be in a trade, like sometimes to get longer. Like I was on ARB, and before I had the run up, and it's like, man, should have just stayed longer. And so I kind of have to just learn how to do a little bit of both. You know what I mean? Like have like a longer time frame trade and just a small scalps. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and use and the thing is, you can do if you're closing out 70, let's say what do you so use something to close, right? So once you hit your number, right, a lot of times you can say to yourself, because remember, the reversal comes off 2 things, right? So normally when there's a pump, you're looking for the second 15-minute red moon, and you're looking for the 1 hour red moon. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you know what? Before I wasn't getting what you, and I was like, but why? But I started like the more you keep looking at the graphs, it's like, okay, I get it. It always comes back. Like, but you see the green 15 first green moon, you're like, okay, so that's it. It's going. But no, it always end up going back red, and then the second green, that's when it goes higher.
Right, exactly, exactly. So that's where it takes a little bit of time, but because it's where your brain, right? Because everybody thinks different, right? And it doesn't matter how many times I cover it. It just happens to where when you recognize it, you're like, oh, okay, I see what's happening. So that's why I'm always
Yeah.
telling guys, like I just told Young, I was like, listen, when you see a 15-minute green moon, right, and you're thinking long, you need to have the 1 hour moon validation, right? So that's why the trades that we work on are 1 hour green moon, enter on a 15-minute moon and trend on the 15-minute, right? Because the minimum volume, right? Because you're not going to win every trade, but if you put the numbers in your favor, right? And it's all based on, if you're the sad part is if we did spot trading, right, then we would win 100, we would 100% of our trades, right? But we're trading with leverage. So leverage, we need to be very specific, and we have to have confirmations, right? So when the 1 hour green moon comes, the entry's on the 15-minute green moon green trend, because that's the minimum amount of volume pressure we need in order to say it's worth the risk, right? Because normally, the reason why that is because every trade pulls back. But if you have a 15-minute green moon and green trend, more than likely the first 15-minute green moon already happened, so the pullback already happened. So you have a space there where you can look at the first 15-minute green moon and say, okay, it pulled back here, and now you have an idea of where a pullback could go to. But because the second time you get it with the 15-minute moon and green trend, the trend is validating the volume pressure. Now, it doesn't mean it can't pull back to where it pulled back earlier. It just means the likelihood is down to like 30%. So now you have a 70% chance of success. And that's why I tell guys, if you get your stop loss set up at 15% or 20 or whatever, and you get stopped out, then just reevaluate. And then when it comes back down and you got all your RSIs lined back up again, take the next trade, because that trade right there it's going to be there. You're not going to win every single time with high leverage or, 50, 60x in that area. Sometimes it does pull back. But once it does that pullback and you jump back in, you're going to make up that 20% stop loss on that next move, plus what you originally thought you were going to make, which is your 50 to 100. So either way, you get your money back if you continue to track the trade and you just allow it to, reset itself properly, right? That's going to happen, 3 out of 10 times, but you should make that money back if you stay in your trade. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So with you, you just have to get to a part where once you get into your trade and you get your scalp trade in and you take your percentages, it's okay to take, 80% of the profits out, and then as it resets, does its pullback, because it's always going to have the second 15-minute moon and trend is going to be a pullback. And
I noticed also that just like you say, that there's first the second green moon. It also happens with the 4 hour, with the 1 hour, and the 4 hour. Like the first 4 hour green 4 hour moon. And it also is the same thing. It works the same way, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah. So what are you looking at? Are you looking for the 2 hour and the 4 hour green moons?
Yeah. So like if you go like with a little bit higher of a time frame, it does the same thing also. But that's what I noticed.
Yeah.
Same concept.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
first 4 hour green moon, you skip that. You wait for the second one. That's when it works.
Yeah. Okay. So exactly. So okay, listen. So so if you remember, we're always focusing on the 1 hour, right? It's because the 1 hour is the minimum green moon, right? The longer every trade's the same, right? So the first trade is 1 hour green moon, entry 15-minute green moon and trend minimum, right? The second time you come around is the 2 hour green moon and then the 4 hour green moon, right? So you have three opportunities. It all depends on how much volume is coming into the trade, right? So if you're tracking this trade off the 1 hour and you make that trade, the second trade is the 2 hour green moon coming in, right? Which is the same setup, meaning the 1 hour RSI comes down, you have a 1 hour green moon, and then all of a sudden you have a trend, and then the 2 hour moon hits, and boom, you got a second trade, right? And then it moves along. If it continues to build volume, then you have a 4 hour moon, and that's with a 2 hour moon, a 2 hour trend, and now your RSI is reset, and then you get a 4 hour moon and a 4 hour trend, and that's the end of the cycle, right? So that's how you can also look at it and say, if you look at a trade and you realize that you hit a 1 hour moon and trend, but you also hit a 2 hour and a 3 hour moon and trend, right? Well, that means that the cycle's pushing. There's a lot of volume right here, and it's actually triggering all the trades. And then once those trades are out of your pocket, right, then you don't have those trades anymore, right? That's why I always tell guys that once the trades happen, they have to reset. So once you don't have a 2 hour moon and trend trade, or a 3 hour moon and trend, or a 4 hour moon and trend, then there is no trade. Like that trade is exhausted, right? It has to come back down to reset those trades, right? So that's what we're talking about. It's like when knowing that there is no more trades, right? So I want to make a trade when I have possibilities of multiples, right? Meaning that if I'm looking at a trade and I have a 1 hour green moon and green trend, right, which is the trade I want, and then I look and I see that there's a 2 hour moon and trend, and then I look and there's only a 4 hour moon and trend. Now, the bigger the time frames, the bigger the movements. But it also comes down to is that, does it have the momentum to push past that, right? So it's kind of like once those trades are out there, I'm very like careful of the volume, and as long as the volume it keeps moving up, then I'll take my 4 hour trade. But a lot of times you want to have the momentum. That's what I was talking about earlier about when you get the 15-minute moon and trend. It's great if you still have a 30-minute moon and trend that leads into a 1 hour moon and trend, because now you have three trades in a row, and each of those trades are going to create the heartbeat, right? The 15 is going to go up and come back, 30 is going to go up and come back, the 1 hour is going to go up and come back, right? So you have all those, those roller coasters there. And you can always tell how strong it is by the 15-minute. If the 15-minute moon and trend doesn't come back, and it's comes has a little pullback and then goes, then you know that it's a heavy trading day, right? So your momentum is pushing. But if the 15-minute struggles and then it takes a while for the 30-minute, then yeah, I'm not really excited about that trade because nobody's paying attention. You know what I mean? I want to see the action where the trade's moving up, coming down, moving up, right? With some type of rhythm. If it's just kind of like stagnant, then I'm like, this trade doesn't have any value, right? That's why, kind of if you don't have the instincts to see that, you just follow the indicators and you get to the point where, all right, let me look at my volume, right? Is the volume there, right? If the volume's not there, then it's not an active, not active at that time. Doesn't mean that trade's not coming. It just means it's going to take a while. So sometimes you might get in a trade that could take 6, 7, 8 hours, or even 12 hours, right? And then you get some trades you hop in, and then all of a sudden they're done in 10 minutes. You know, that's kind of like things. So for you, you have to have a process of when do I close my trade, right? So that really comes down to the first 15 minutes. That's when you get that second 15-minute moon and trend, that's normally a pullback, right? So that's normally when I like to take my 80% is when I see that happen. And then once that happens, I let the 1 hour red moon come in, and then once that 1 hour red moon plays out and starts to go down, if I'm looking at a trade that still has, remember, this is where you have to look, this is how you can start telling how long you can run. Go back and look at some of the trades and take a look at how long it took after the pullback for the 2 hour, the 3 hour, and the 4 hour moon and trend trades to happen, right? And that'll give you an idea of how to look at a trade and say, okay, this one still has time, right? Because if those trades are still available, then you'll see them move through the process of being triggered as they go forward. And you'll notice on the trades that didn't have the runs, you'll notice that those trades were part of, they happened at the same time. Sometimes you'll have a 1 hour and a 2 hour trend trade at the same time, and a 3 and a 4 at the same time, right? That just means those trades are done. So there's nothing, it can't keep running because there are no trades, right? So go back and look at some of those charts and say, okay, when did the 2 hour come in, right? So after your 1 hour and your 15-minute went through, go and look how far the 2 hour was, right? And then look at the 4 hour, and then you'll see the pattern of how the indicators will let you know if there's a continuation possibility or it's already exhausted. And then when you take your 80%, if those trades are still there and you see them growing, Then what you do is you let that 1 hour RSI, 1 hour moon come down, and you start buying the bottoms of the 30-minute RSIs, right? So when the 15 and the 30 start bouncing, you start buying back in. You put 20% back in, and you start building the bag back in. And the best part is now you're dealing with profits. So you're dealing with house money. So now you
Yeah.
say, okay, my first trade I had 1,000 and I took 700 profit or 300 profit. So now I know on this trade, if I'm going to run a continuation, the only thing I can do is 300. So now as the pullback happens, I got 100 in, so I have 200 extra. So now as it pulls back, I'll put 50 here. I'll buy on the 15-minute bounce, the 30-minute bounce. I'll put another 100. I'll let it run its course. If it continues to pull back, I'll wait for it to come back down. And then the next one is going to be when the 1 hour. So you put in, 50% of what you're doing on the 30-minute, 15-minute bounce, and you put the other 50% when the 1 hour starts to head up. And now you're locked in at some good pricing, and now you can let it run. Now you can sit there and go, okay, now this is either going to, hit a 2 hour or 4 hour moon and trend, and we're going to, take profits and make these profits into, double down on my compounding, or I take a 20% stop loss here at the end of the day, and so at the end of the day, I lost $60 of my 300 that I already made. So it's really, I'm still up.
Yeah. So just those are the things that I still need to just learn and correct, and that's it.
Yeah, so what I want to do is because now you're at the point where you finally kind of like came into and sometimes unfortunately it takes a lot of lessons to get to where you go, okay, I now I'm starting to see shit, right? And that's how it is. And now you're at the point where you're at your 70% mark, right? You're hitting what you got to hit, and you still have the basic issues where you're just trying to solve the understanding of, is this going to continue, or do I just am I happy with my 25%? Because now you're at the point where your 25% bag is still worth a lot of money, and you're like, man, if I do 10 of these trades, I'm crushing my 2,000. So what's my dilemma? Do I push these other trades, or now you need to figure out if you can just eliminate 50% of the bad things you do. That's all you need to do, right? A lot of times guys you're trying to get the 100% mark, but you don't need to solve 100% of that issue. You need to solve 50% of your bad trades and eliminate them. And that's a game changer. Like once you do that, it's like, oh, well, shit. I mean, because the reason why we're in crypto is because we're risk takers. So the whole point of this is to take a risk. You know what I mean? It's okay to lose trades, right? That's the whole thing people don't understand. It's like it's okay to lose. We'll just come right back and get it back. Because if you have a system that you're following and a structure, it's going to give it back to you, right? And it takes time to do the trades over and over and over, and then you realize like, well, I am winning every fucking time. It's my personal decision to push, and the indicators can't tell you on your personal decision, because a lot of times that's your gut feeling, or you want to push more. And it's like what you need to do is the next level is taking the indicators and finding a happy medium to say, okay, I'm going to do this, and then when I push, I want this indicator to tell me this one thing. So you pick a time frame, and then you decide what it is, right? Meaning that if you get a 2 hour red moon, right, then you're completely out, right?
Yeah.
It's something that just closes it out. So a lot of times, if you have a 1 hour moon and a trend, that's where 90% of the time you got to close that trade, right?
When I have what?
When you have a red moon and trend, like when you
Oh
get
yeah.
you get that signal, you got to close, because that's the pullback. Like that's the end, right? That's the one thing we can't push. Now, what you can push is a 15-minute red moon, red trend with a 1 hour red moon. You can push that, because once that goes down, you can come back up with a green moon, and that'll push into the next level. But that only matters if there's a trade possibility on a higher time frame, a 2, a 3, or 4 hour trade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has to have that option. If you're looking at a trade and it doesn't have a 4 hour option or at least a 3 hour, right? It's like, it's not going to happen. Like that one you can let go. So if you get into a trade and you start pulling your money out and you're watching the 15-minute pullback and then you go look at the 3 hour moon and you realize the 3 hour moon and trend already hit. And then you go to the 4 hour and you realize the 4 hour and the 4 hour moon and trend already hit. Right? Now you're like, oh shit, I'm not in a good spot here. Right? Because I need to see some type of like what's the next trade, right? Go to your daily, take a look at the daily. You might be closing in on a daily. You might be closing in on a daily trend, right? Which will let you know, like, okay, I could think about this trade, but it's probably going to be in the next day or two, right? So let me take profits here, and then let me reevaluate, and then when the 1 hour resets, then I'll get in, and that'll give me a better opportunity to grow. But that's where you need to start evaluating, your longer holds, right? Like see if there's any additional trades that can happen.
Yeah. So just look at GLMR.
Glamour, hold on. All right, Glamour. All right, I'm taking a look at it right now. All right. So what time frame are you starting? I know you like the 15 minutes. So is that what you're kind of tinging in?
Just 1 hour. Yeah, but you see how long that 1 hour it's been red? It's been red for a long time.
Yeah. And we also the important thing too. Do you have your sell signals on there? So we have our sell signals on there too. Do you have those on? I will check them a little bit later. All right. So the sell signal came in at 48.30. Right. So far since that sell signal, it's came in and got about 7% off of that. So yeah, you have the 1 hour has been red for a while. So let's see here. All right. So what are you thinking on this one?
So right here, it's like the struggle that I know what you mean. You have to wait for the older the 15-minute to just go back red and red and then green again. But that's the struggle that I see because the 15 it kind of looks like the RSI is turning up. And then so that would be something that I'll be looking into getting in at the 3 minute because the 3 minute
moon and trend.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. Okay, so so this is where so right here you have a 15-minute and you're catching, you have the right signal. All right, you have your 15-minute moon, you have a 15-minute trend. You had a spike on the 15-minute. You see that spike that came in? So you had a burst, then it pulled back. So now you have an ideal of an area that it wants to fall to, right? So that's when it pulled back to that 45.51, right? So now you have kind of like a higher low than that previous low of 45.29. So just to kind of give you an ideal here. So the first thing I would do is measure that bottom of that previous low wick. You see that one that came out about 45.27? And I would lower and I would look at my current price, right? And let's see here. And what I'm doing is I'm evaluating if I was looking at this trade and we're at 46.05. So if I was looking at this trade, currently that's a 1.7, right? So 2%. So if I was doing a 30x here, my stop loss would be at 40, 49, 50%, right? So that's the first thing I look at is like, okay, so if it goes back to where, its spike is, I'm at a almost a 2%, scenario here, right? Which means that if I start building from here, right, which wouldn't be a bad idea if you're like thinking, is that once you start building up, I have to be prepared to allow it to come back, right? So this is where you're a little bit early here, but you are still protected. That's why we have the 3 minute green moon green trend, right? Because as we come in, we have a mark at 40, 46.10, but because we don't have a trend, we're going to get a pullback here, right? And that's kind of what saves you from getting a little excited, right? So it's building momentum. It just hasn't got the people's attention, right? So now what we do is this is where I'm talking about the 1 hour. So go to your 1 hour, right? The trade that you're looking for to start is a 1 hour green moon. Okay. So because there is no 1 hour green moon here, we can't take the early risk. See what I'm saying?
That's I know that's where I'm like that's usually where I start doing what I start doing wrong. Because I guess maybe I don't know, just the way I see it, because I'm more like a risk taker.
Mm-hmm.
So because you like you say, everything starts from the lower time frames, that tell the higher time frames what's going to happen, right?
Yep.
So clearly slowly the bigger time frames are moving in. They're turning green, right? It already happened at 15. Now the next one is gonna be the 30, and then eventually the 1 hour is going to be there. So so then why not to just start averaging down from now when it's lower? That's
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
I struggle with
Yeah.
those thoughts.
So you're trying to, and this is where that's a spot trader mentality, right? So when a spot trader sees this, that's what I'm saying. If we traded with these indicators and we did it a spot trading, we'd win 100% of our trades. We'd never lose, right? And that's because we see that it's starting to happen, right? We have a 15-minute moon and trend, right? Telling us that it's starting to get a reversal. The problem is that when we use leverage, we need to be more accurate, right? So this is where you have to say to your mind, right? This is where you have to teach yourself is that the reason we use leverage is so that I don't have to guess on the entry, right? Because remember, the guys who have to guess on this entry or cost average buy into this trade are spot traders. That's because they need to maximize their position because when this trade does happen and it goes for 7%, that's what they're going for is 10%, maybe 15, right? So in order to get to 15, 20%, they need to cost average buy to make sure they get the lowest average price to give them the best possibility to make 20% gains, right? Now, we use high leverage because we want to make 50% gains, double the other guy without cost average buying or taking that risk. You see what I'm saying? So that's the point of leverage. Leverage is there to basically make the same 20%, but without all the work of cost average buying.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So that's where you have to stay in your mind is that the regular guy who's doing what I'm trying to do right here is trying to make 20%. But if I'm patient, my high leverage, I'm going to make the 20% anyways. But I can be safer here where I'm not stuck in a trade. Now, you can, if you're spot trading, you can start buying Glamour right now and cost average buying. This could take 4 or 5 days to start, right? Well, I mean, I'm just saying, as a spot trader, you never know. You might be stuck in there, right? You never know when someone's gonna. I mean, because Glamour, it's like I love Glamour, I love Moonbeam, and but we never know when they're going to turn hot. You know what I mean? We don't know when their moment is, right? We don't know if there's like what's the news release, what's the press release, they got something coming? Is there a partner? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of little things. What's the cycle of Glamour? When does it come in? Right. So if you're trading certain spot trades, you have to be aware of when a coin gets hot. Does it follow? Let's say like Bitcoin normally goes down and then quant normally goes up, right? And so there's all these little patterns like who buys Glamour and when do they normally buy it, right? So you have to once you figure out like there's a certain coin that goes up or down, when that coin goes down, this coin goes up. So we don't know when Glamour is going to get hot, right? This is why for us, we set the indicator just to tell us when it's going to get hot, right? So for us, the first thing you do here is I would just go to my 1 hour moons right click on a moon, and I would just add an alert on the 1 hour moon, right? And that's just because the minimum I want to know is I want to know when Glamour gets a 1 hour moon, because at that point, that's going to let me know, and that's going to be on crossing. That's going to let me know right away that that's a trade I need to look at, right? So now if you're going to cost average or think to yourself, right, the concept is, okay, I'm going to cost average buy here. So what I want you to do is look at your 1 hour and say, okay, the 1 hour moon got rejected, right? Which means the RSI is probably going to come down one more time, because you see how you see the money line on the moon, see how it got rejected and now it's headed down.
On where?
Take your look at your 1 hour. So took a look, yeah, 1 hour, and then you have your two lines on your moon alert, right?
Yeah.
You see how you see how it's bending down there?
Yeah.
Okay, that means there's no volume right now. See how the money is going down?
Yeah.
So it's like it doesn't have a lot of pressure right now. So we started at 46.10, we're at 45.93. See what I'm saying? So now if we see that, what I want you to start doing is saying to yourself, okay, I need my 1 hour to come back down and reset. So if I do that, right, let's go look at the higher time frames. Where's my 2 hour? Okay. Normally a good trade is when the 2 hour breaks the 20 line. You see where the 2 hour RSI is? It's coming up on there. Now, this is a good indicator that what you think is going to happen is going to happen. You see that? See how the 2 hour is almost to the 20?
Yeah.
So that's another indicator that you see, that you need these steps that you look at. So now that we know the 2 hour is about to break the 20, the ideal that Glamour is going to be a good trade is actually reinforced, right? So, okay, now the 2 hour is heading past the 20. That looks good. Now I go to my 4 hour. My 4 hour is flat, right? So, boom. Okay, that's not a bad position. Take a look at my daily just to see the overall, right? Daily's heading down, but we're working on the daily with the green trend. So it looks like overall we're pretty good on a short move here, right? So our 4 hour is at the bottom, the 2 hour is about to break the 20. This looks really good. The only thing we need here is for the volume to start actually picking up. You see what I'm saying? And that's where, when you're looking at your moon, looking on your moon side, watching the money line and the sell line, the money is all that matters, because the money line will go up before the RSI goes up, right? That's the one that matters. So now that you look at this trade, you're on the right path. You just need to have the confirmation. So your confirmation, when you look at this trade, what I want you to start doing is taking a look at your 4 hour RSI. And if it's at the bottom, that's one confirmation. The second one, the main one, is the 2 hour. If your 2 hour RSI is about to break the 20 line, now you just increase your odds of winning this trade or putting less money in by 50%. You see what I'm saying? This is a way to eliminate some of the things that put pressure on you by going the other way. If the 2 hour breaks the 20 line, right? So that's kind of like the one confirmation to add to your toolbox. If the RSI on the 2 hour breaks the 20 line, then that confirms that you're getting a reversal. Okay? So that's the first thing you got to look at. And then once you have that, which is looks like it's starting to do here, is if it does break that 20 line, then you have a confirmation to say, okay, what I'm thinking is right. So now you go to your 1 hour, and if you get that 1 hour line heading back up towards the green moon, that's the second confirmation. Okay? So then from there you have two trades, right? So we call them the call it the trade, right? Because the trade you want to make is this: you want to make a 1 hour green moon trade, right? To get that 1 hour green moon, you need to start off, and what the start off is to confirm your 1 hour green trade is the 2 hour RSI has to break the 20 line. Once that validates your 1 hour trade, right? So you need validation. So the trade is the 1 hour green moon. We need validation. Where's validation? The 2 hour RSI breaking the 20 line, right? Now, once that validates, now you can look at your trade and go, okay, now the 1 hour trade is possible, right? So once that happens, you can go down to your 1 hour, and when you see that money line starting to head up, that would be your indication to start cost average buying. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when that 1 hour bends to the top side, that would be an area of cost average buying if that's what you're looking at. So for me, I would look at this and say, okay, the 2 hour RSI is going to break the 20. When it does that, that will confirm to me that this is a position that I can start cost average buying in as soon as the 1 hour starts to head my direction, right? So that's the first part of the trade. And what that allows you to do is it puts you in a situation where you're not missing this trade because those are the two things you need to happen anyways. You see what I'm saying? So now you have an ideal here. If 2 hour RSI has to cross the 20, the 1 hour moon buying the money line has to start heading north again. Boom. Two things that I need. Now when I look at my 30-minute, right, I see my 30-minute coming down, and you can see the money line on the 30-minute is actually pushing up, right? So that just lets me know that we're in a consolidation phase. And then it doesn't take a lot to look at the 30 and realize that it's hit the 45.52 number how many times? All right, look at that. Boom, 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 right? So the thing about this is that as it's building momentum, right?
It hit the what?
So if you look at your 30-minute, right? So when you look at the 30-minute, you look at all those wicks that came down and basically hit a 45, 55 area. You see those? Yeah. See all the little wicks? Those are the ones you're looking at. And then the bigger wicks went past them, but they sat on top of that line. So they're all hovering about 45, 50. 45, 50 is like your entry point that you would have been looking at earlier. And you can tell if you go back, you see the two big wicks down on the 30-minute, and then you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 reds in a row with a baby green, and then 2 more reds and another green. They all hit the same area. They're all hitting the area between 45.50 and 45.60. Okay. And then after that push, right, that wick came back, and what did it touch? That wick came back and touched what? 45.47. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you were cost average buying, when you seen that 15-minute green moon come in and that trend, you would have set your buys for 45.50. You see what I'm saying? Because you would expect it to come back and touch that. And that would start your cost average buying. Because at that time, the 2 hour was headed up and your 4 hour RSI was on the bottom. You see what I'm saying? So you had two confirmations. The 4 hour RSI was flat and the 2 hour was headed up, right? So if you were going to cost average buy, you would pick a target that's already been hit a few times, which would be about 45.50. And you actually, after that last 15-minute green moon and green trend, you hit the 45.50. You see that?
At the 30 minutes?
Yeah, look at the 30 minutes. Right, so that kind of gives you an ideal. And even if you're looking, let's say you go back to the 15-minute, right? Same breakdown if you look at the 15-minute. 15-minute has 3 big red candles before it went to a reversal. They stopped at 44.99, so 45 cents. Then it pushed up, and then it started consolidating. After it pushed up the first time, after its big pullback, it came down and hit 45.64. And then a few candles later, it came down to 45.55, 45.53, and then finally it dumped from there, and its lowest price was 45.30. Now, when the candle came on the 15-minute, you can see the moon came in. There was a push on the 15-minute green moon. The pullback from the 15-minute green moon came back down to 45.30. Then the trend came in. After the trend on the 15-minute, it pulled back down and it hit 55.50. You see that?
Yeah.
So that is where you would be. That would have been the beginning of the cost average buying, because you see on the 15-minute, the money line came down. It didn't hit a moon. It actually didn't even get close to it. It came down, but it turned up right there on that 45.50, that last red. And now it's starting to push up. See? So what I would be looking for here is earlier when you seen that 15-minute green moon, because I know you're watching a lot of the 15s. When you see the 15-minute green moon, take a look at when it pulls back, what price it pulls back to, which would have been about 45.56, And then as it continued forward, it had a final pullback to 45.30. Now, when you've seen that pullback right there, that's where what you're thinking, you would have been like, okay, so that's a target area, 45.36, right? Once the green trend hit and there was a push and it came back and you've seen that big wick there, you'd be looking for a target in between those three lower wicks at 45.50 to 45.36, and that's where you would cost average buy 45.50 down to 45.36. So that would be your first point. Now it hit it one time, right? And now it's starting to work its way up, but it's still looking for momentum. So right now we could have it where this coin could push forward. It could actually pull back again to 45.50, in that area. And then that's when you'll see everything else starting to build momentum again. And that's where the push is. So the one thing you want to do is kind of say to yourself, okay, I see this little pattern here. Moon, push, pullback. Now, after the trend hits on that trend pullback, that's the buy. All right, and that buy came out about 45.50, 45.60 area, right? That would have been the buy areas for there. So now we're a little bit higher than that. So what we'd be waiting for is for this to give us another pullback on the 15, because it's just kind of like growing. So now to determine how much room I have, I go to my 1 hour, and I can see my 1 hour is almost to the 100 line, right? It's pushing there, right? So this is where I would say, okay, I'm gonna let the 1 hour hit the 100 line, and then the next time the 1 hour starts to head down and I start to see pressure, this is why it's important to say, okay, I'm waiting for that 1 hour green moon alert, right? Because that's when we'll know that volume is actually solid here and it starts to move up. So for you, if you want to start catching some of these, start looking at your 15-minute, and when you get that first 15-minute moon, whatever the pullback comes down to, right? That pullback at 45.55, that's the beginning of your cost average buy, right? You kind of set it there. And then what happens is you go down the road about an hour and a half later, there's a big drop that goes down to 45.30, right? Where you would be buying in on that. Buy. You see what I'm saying? And at that point, you'd be locked in at about 45.48 or something like that. And that's been the area that after the big trend hit, it came back down to that again. So that's where you'd be sitting right there. So what you need to do is 15-minute moon. And this is all, remember, the validation to this starts with the 2 hour trend, right? And the 4 hour. So if the 4 hour trend is already bottomed out, okay, that's the trade. The 2 hour RSI starts to head up. That's the validation of the trade. Now, 15-minute moon hits. The pullback on the 15-minute moon is the lowest level for your cost average buying. That's where you set your target. After that, when the trend hits and it pulls back, that's where you're starting to buy again. When it pulls back, hopefully it comes back down to your target, which it did, and that gets you more buy-ins, right? But you have a hefty spot here where you're locked in at 45.50, and that's the area that you're buying. But now you have buys from 45.50 down to 45.30 that you've bought in, and now you're just sitting here. That's the way to catch what you're trying to do. But remember, this trade starts with a 4 hour RSI at the bottom, followed by a 2 hour RSI breaking the 20 line, right? Showing you that there's a sign of reversal, followed with a 15-minute moon and trend, which you got, right? The 15-minute moon is your first push. The pullback on the 15-minute moon is the area to target a buy-in area, the average pullback on each of the candles, which would have been 45.55 down to 45.30. And then the 15-minute trend hit, pulls back, and that's where you start buying your cost average there. Your target should hit at that area that you already have marked off. So now you've got a couple buys at 45.50. You've cost average bought at the bottom of the moon at the first moon pullback, and now you're just waiting for it to consolidate as it moves forward. But
Yeah, that's
but remember, the key to this is you have to have a 4-hour RSI bottomed. You have to have a 2-hour RSI headed up, right? At that time, that confirms that there's a trade, right? So it's like that's what I'm saying. Just create steps that you can stay in on. So the step is 4-hour RSI bottomed, okay? 2-hour RSI is finally starting to head up. That's the beginning of the trade. Confirmation of the trade is a 15-minute green moon, right? That leads into a pullback. That pullback is the first target area of an entry, which was about 45.30. Then the trend hit, pushed up and came back, gave you another area of 45.50, right? That's your target. So now all your buys are at 45.50 to 45.30. Okay? So now, right now, if we're sitting here, let's say we walk through the scenario, right? First thing was the 4-hour trend. It was there. We seen the 2-hour start to go up. Boom. We start looking, going, man, this thing has to bounce. Boom. We track it. Now we see the 15-minute moon come in. It pushes up, comes back. The lowest point is 45.28. Then we get a trend. It pushes. Its pullback is 45.50. So now we set our entries at 45.50, right? Because remember, the whole point of this is to say, okay, we're going to enter at 45.50, but remember our true entry, right, still needs a 1-hour green moon, still needs the basic, trade, right? So we need a 1-hour green moon, we need a 15-minute green moon and green trend, right? So now we have a target here of 45.50, which is, remember, we started this call, we were looking at this thing, it was at 46.10. You see what I'm saying? So now,
yeah.
if we would have bought and said, oh, I'm going to cost average buy here, we would have bought at 46.10, right? And this is where the mistake comes in, because now you're sitting where you're almost at a 1% loss already, right? So if you're doing a 50x, we're almost down 50%. So now what we're doing is we're setting up in target area, right? So we know the target area is going to be 45.50, right? So now we just need everything to run its course, which it looks like it's starting to do. So that 15 minutes going to come back down, probably get a moon, bring us down to that 45.50 area again, and that's when we start cost average buying. Now the beauty of that is we start cost average buying from there, we've already saved ourselves 50% of our entry. So now, you've got, it's kind of like paying yourself 50% already. Now you can go down another 50%, which is, if you look at it from the low point of 45.30 to our entry of 45.50, that's only that's a 0.5%, right? So if we're doing a 50x, that's a 25% stop loss. See what I'm saying? So now, by creating that entry point, even if it goes down to that next lower level, it's only a 25% area. So if our stop loss is set there and we're cost average buying, we're not too worried about it, because I know sometimes when you're buying these, you're auto margining, and that puts you to where if you have a stop loss at 50, 55, 60% and you're cost average buying anyways, this gives you a nice little 30% area that you're going to be buying into, and it also protects you from that first 50% loss. Do you see how it's coming down now?
Yeah.
And that's the only thing you have to do is, that's why we have the, waiting for the 3-minute moon and trend, is because it's designed to protect you from jumping.
You know why I forgot? I was just checking and I forgot that I had a short.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, because I noticed the same thing. It's going back. I mean, I did a push at the 15, but no matter what, it's gonna have to be read at the 15 again. So that's why I did open a short earlier, because I was like, well, that's gonna happen. So that's why I did it.
Exactly. So this is where That's what I'm saying. Like you're at that point. So you're at the 70% line. I mean, you've had a lot of trials and tribulations, but now you're starting to piece together a system, right? And that makes sense to your mind, right? And now you're like, okay, the indicators are just there to confirm what you think and to help you from doing dumb shit, right? Like saying, "Oh, you know what? This looks good, man. This is really cheap at 46 cents. I'm buying." And the next thing you know, you're down 50%. Or even if you're doing a 10x, right? Let's say that you're doing a fucking 10x. At the end of the day, you're still down 10%, right? When your entry should be right in this area now when this bounce happens. So you can save 20, you can basically, that's why I always tell you guys, the money is on the entry. The indicators are on the for the money. The indicators are to get you on the best entry to make sure that you make the best money. And I think saying it the other way, the indicators are designed to stop you from making bad entries, right? That's what they're really made for. Because if you stop doing bad, yeah, if you stop doing bad entries, then you'll win more money because the money is in the entry, right? So when you see this pullback right here, look at us, 45.47. Now we know our buy zone is 45.30 to 45.50. So now we come in here, we buy 20% here, right? And you buy down to 45.30, right? And you're still in a good position if you're cost average buying. So for me, it's like the reason why you set targets is to say to yourself, okay, it needs to break these targets before I can think about a trade. So now that it's broken that target for me, now I know that I'm in a trading zone, right? So this is where I get excited because once I get a 15-minute red moon and it continues to fall, I already know that the lower level is 45.30. You see what I'm saying? So as I start to push past that, when I get a 15-minute reversal below that area, then I know that me buying below that area has already paid me off, right? Because I know that my target was 45.50 to start looking at a reversal. 45.30 is my entry point, right? Which is what I'm looking for. That's the minimum, 45.30. But the main target is the bottom of the last candle, which is, remember, 45 cents. You see what I'm saying? So now that I'm below the 45.50, close to my 45.30, this is where I pay close attention because now I know that if I start buying in this area here, right, if I can get to 45 cents, I'm definitely buying because that's the lowest target that we have. And from 45.30 below, that's all winning percentages. Because no matter what happens from that point, it has support at 45 cents. It has support at 45.30. So if I get below 45.30 to 45 cents, that little buy area, that if I start cost average buying into a long at that point, I'm in really good shape of my odds here because that's a 1% move between those two areas. So if I'm buying halfway in between there, that means I'm at least saving myself 2% on my entry, right? And if we're doing a 50x, that's 150%, 200%.
Yeah.
So this is where I want to kind of like get you to where you start seeing that moment and say, just be a little more greedy on the entry, right? So right here, you start seeing it. Now it's protecting itself at 45.40, right? So now we start to say, okay, now is there going to be a divergence, right? Which we're seeing right here. See how Glamour is starting to defend itself after it got down to 45.35? You see that?
Yeah.
So now we see a little bit of, okay, there's some buy orders here, right? So is it going to start building a floor here? That's a good sign, right? So now if I'm doing Glamour here, I feel pretty good in this area that the next time I get this 15-minute push down here, I'm going to be in a solid area where people think that, we're starting to look in a decent position. So now I have a 45.35 area. Remember, it just hit that. So now I can set my entry and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to do 20% at 45.35. Right? And remember, the original thing, most people would have been 46.10, right? But now that I've seen it touch 45.35 and I still have a 15-minute red moon possibility, I still have the RSI pushing down, right? And remember, the whole thing here is that I still have the 1 hour. This is why when you have the steps in place, you can stop yourself from being emotional, right? Like, oh man, this is a good buy at 45.40. It sounds really good when we talk it through. But I know that in my head, I need an alert on a 1 hour green moon. You see what I'm saying? So even at this point, I get even greedier because I'm like, okay, I still have time because I don't even have my alert on my moon. So let's say if I get greedy and say, you know what? Okay, I'm going to take this trade and I have a green moon on the 15-minute. I have a green trend. So what I want here is I want a 15-minute green red moon to come in, solidify a moon. So remember, one of the trades we have is a moon reset. 15-minute moon is green, trend is green. If we get a red 15-minute moon that then goes back to green, then we have a moon reset because now we have a 15-minute moon that went from green to red back to green while the trend stayed green, right? So meaning that the volume stayed consistent. That's why the moon resets are important on the 15-minute because it tells you that the volume has stayed consistent, right? Just because the price dropped there doesn't mean there wasn't people coming in, right? So as long as you got buyers coming in, you got the potential of sentiment reversal, right? Which is kind of what we're seeing right now. So this is,
I think it's gonna break the lower resistance, the 527.
yeah, we're looking really good. I mean, right here I could say anything below 45.35. I mean, I would say is a decent buy, right? And the beauty of like remembering that, we use leverage so we don't have to get in early, right? So when you put that thought in your mind, like, it's okay, I have leverage, I don't have to buy in early, right? Just gives you a
But
little
you're
more,
contradicting yourself.
huh?
You're contradicting yourself because you're saying to be greedy about our entries.
Yeah.
So why would I not enter when it's clearly it's looking that way? So if I wait for the 1 hour green moon, then I'm not being so greedy about my entry.
Yeah, but see, you're being so what it is that when you decide emotionally, right? Like right there, it looked good below 45.35, right? But
Yeah.
say to yourself, all right, I'm gonna be a little more greedy because we still haven't got a 15-minute red moon. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's where you want to be greedy, right?
Yeah.
And you,
I know it's coming. I'm waiting for it.
yeah, and you got and how you're greedy on it is that you say to yourself, all right, I want more, right? But the
Yeah.
reason why you go back and say, I still need a 1 hour green moon. You see what I'm saying? The 1 hour green moon is the rational part of our decision. You see, it protects us from our emotions, right? Because I want to be by being greedy by saying, okay, I'm at 45, I want more, right? And then I'm like, okay. And what makes me feel better is that I say, well, you know what? No matter what, I still have a 1 hour green moon alert that I need. So it allows me to be calm and say, okay, you know what? This trade still isn't happened yet because I still need a 1 hour green moon. So let me ask for more money, right? So now we're below 45.30. You see?
You already have my insurance covered because I'm on a short.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for you, your reversal, like you hit the little reversal button, is when you start to see that 15-minute come to its end, and you can say, okay, I'm in a good
Yeah.
spot here, right? And then you can start cost average buying from there. But that's what I'm saying. Like when you start saying to yourself to be greedy, right? We're waiting for a 15-minute, we're waiting for a 1 hour green moon alert, anyways, right? So for us, it's like, okay, I'm just going to be greedy. I'm going to wait a little bit longer, right? And sometimes greediness isn't the price of entry. Sometimes greediness is basically waiting for everything to be in your favor,
Yeah.
right? So that's the other things, right? By being greedy, we ask for 45.50 and then we're like, all right, 45.30. And then we see it hit and we're like, you know what? I want a 15-minute red moon and we got it. Now we want to see this 15-minute reversal moon, right? So now my entry has changed to where now I need to see the moon come back and then I'm going to enter. You see what I'm saying? So now I'm starting to get a layout of a plan here. So now my entry is a 15-minute green moon again. You see what I'm saying? So now I have two entries. I have my 1 hour green moon alert, and now I have a 15-minute moon alert. You see?
Yeah.
Now I'm feeling good because I'm watching this thing drop, and you should be making some cash on this. And you're watching this
I
thing
already closed.
drop.
I already closed it.
Oh yeah, it's still rolling, man. Believe me.
I closed it. I was like, no waiting.
Oh, the short?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You got your short there, bro. What'd you close it at?
Like that. It was 45.84.
Oh, okay, yeah. So this is where so these are things that, like, for you, let's say you're in that short, right? You say to yourself that, okay, I cannot get out of this short until there's a 3-minute moon and trend.
Yeah, I could have, but since we're on the phone and I'm not really,
Yeah.
I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to wait for that, and then turns back on me, and then like you said, I already made a little bit more than 25, so I'm good.
Oh yeah, you're good on that. But that'll give you the things where, like, when you see certain things, have things that you close in, right?
Oh yeah.
But this will give you, so now that you see how by, waiting for all that to kind of like come around, it just protects you from the early entry, right? So now we're at the point where we have a target now of 45 cents, which looks like we're getting there, right? So now it's like, oh man, we went from 3 good entries to the greatest entry possible. So now we're even a better spot here, right? But now the trades have started to manifest again to where now we have a 15-minute moon reset. So if that trend holds, right, we'll get a 15-minute moon. That gives us more security that we're in the right direction. If that trend breaks, then we need to say, okay, man, we need to let the volume come back around, right? Which is where we start again with what? A 1-hour moon, 15-minute moon and trend. Except this time it's a little bit stronger because it's already it's already had one 15-minute moon and trend at the bottom. So the next one will be even stronger.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing about waiting for confirmations and then saying, okay, I'll catch that second move, right? There's always 2 good moves. The first move is the beginning of the move, which is what just happened on the 15. The second 15-minute move is the stronger move. But this will give you here to say, okay, looks like I can set some entries here at 45 cents. And if it tags 45 cents, now your cost average buying in that lowest section right there. And at least in that area, you have a pretty good odds of being in a better situation than earlier, right? Because now we're talking about the difference between our original thought would have been 45.10, about 2%. So now we're at a 50x where we saved ourselves 100% of our entry.
Oh shit! I didn't even notice. I'm using 120x.
And then, yeah, now what they do is as you move them around, they stay locked in. So if you pick one, it stays there.
It don't matter, right? It matters what the entry is because it won't go up much lower anyways. Well, potentially, which hopefully, because then that will need more gains. But
yeah, so right now if you enter here, it's like you're at you're 0.5% below or 0.5% above the lowest entry possible, like, target right now of 45 cents. So now if you're doing a 50x, that's a 25% stop loss. If you're doing a 100x, it's a 50% stop loss, right? So 25 and 50%, which is in a good spot.
120 then.
On a 20x?
120. So what's my stop loss on 120x?
Yeah, so you have 120. So on the 120x here, you would be looking on your cost average buy down to your 45 cent area, right? So that would be 50, so about 65% stop loss buying down. So it'd be about 65% on your stop loss there. So this is why if you're on your entry, let's say you got 50% of the bag in there, you start buying at this section, 50% in, buy. You've got yourself where by the time you get 100% in at 45 cents, if it does go that low, you're sitting at a point where, okay, now I've got my 65% is actually half, so it's only 30%. And then you're bouncing from there. So then you set your stop loss at that point, you keep it at that 40% mark, and it just hits you where you'd say, okay, if I lose this side, I'm gonna take a 35% hit on here.
Yeah. Well,
But
I already have I'm a 45-18. That's my entry.
oh, 45-18, yeah, you look good.
Yeah.
So that see how walking that through, we got such a better entry.
Yeah. No. Yeah. 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 I know. I noticed too. Like I was like when you were mentioning that, and I was like, but why is he waiting for the second one? Like it's already getting at the trade. Why is he waiting for the second one? But then I started noticing that I would just hold the bag, and then this when I would just start, then it would go up, and I would not sell, which that was my mistake. And then it would go back to my original entry and less, and then it was the same, because of the red moon, the second red moon, and I would just get back in on the second green moon, and that's when it would be like just I would be making gains or whatever, and I was like, oh, okay. So I guess that's what made him saying that. And then, so yeah, I just started noticing those things. And then, whatever, I just put it up in and then sell right away and then just do it again on the second one, second green moon,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, that's
So
for your
yeah,
15-minute, right?
yeah,
Yeah, because the first one is just it's so the first one is the introduction of the trade, meaning of
yeah, it's kind of
what's
like, hey,
coming.
I'm awake,
I'm
I'm
awake.
coming.
Yeah, yeah. I'm up now. And the second part, when you
Yeah,
let it reset, the second part has more volume to it. It just increases your odds by 70%.
yeah,
Right. So that's what it's all about. That's the point. Right. So now you're starting to see that, like, wow, okay. And that's just because when you see the other ones, sometimes you see that first 15-minute moon and it goes crazy. And you're like, yeah, but he missed that
yeah,
trade. But I only miss 3 out of 10. Right? But the other 7 times, if you got in early, it actually goes down 20% from your original entry. And that's where we make up those gains that we didn't get on those 3 ones that go crazy. We make up on the other
yeah,
7. And that's the key there. So now I think
yeah,
for you, I think just the next part is to the way you're looking at your trades and your early entries is just getting you to, look for that, be a little more patient. Say, okay, there's my push. There's a second push. Here's another pullback. Okay, these are the target areas. And then once you have your
yeah,
target areas, now you can say, okay, I want to get in below, 45.30. And then once it gets below there, you're like, oh, okay, this looks good. Now you can start picking apart that area and start building yourself to where it's like, okay, I'm gonna start here, but that'll save you, 50 to 100% off your entry, which will give you, a better percent on the way it moves, because now when it moves back to your original entry, which it does all the time, you're already up 30, 40 to 50 or 100%.
yeah. Oh yeah, just starting to notice those things, and it just takes time, you don't. Sometimes you just get frustrated because you don't know, like, what am I seeing? But then as the more you trade and actually the more you lose, you start noticing, why did I lose? Why? If it was this happening, why? And then just start noticing. That's the whole thing. You need to pay attention on what you're looking at, and then okay, so oh, this moving this way, oh, they're moving together. There's a gap between the money line and the other red. What is it? What is it called?
Oh, the buyer
You see
line,
on
yeah,
your
the sellers.
Yeah, the buyer line and the other one. There's the red one where the cross. You know?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I noticed those two. When there's a gap, that gap between the
Before they make a moon.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. That it's not ready. It's just a little taste. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
But it's
It's
not ready. They both need to be kind of like going the same way. Otherwise, you're.
yes,
Yep.
yes. But when they both turn up, that's
Yep.
that's when it's happening.
Yeah.
That's when it's
Yeah, so
happening.
that's the whole thing. You just gotta look at those things. Just gotta pay attention to those things, see why, and sometimes I use the auto margin. I know I should not do it, but I feel like once you kind of have an idea of what's happening, even I mean, I don't do it when I have a big position. I don't do it. But sometimes it goes your way or it doesn't go your way. You already know that it's not gonna. Eventually, it's gonna come back up. So when it's coming back up. You just pretty much double down on your position and you're good, you're out. But I mean that's not safe to do it because I mean why would you want to be stressed, about
Yeah.
I'm down, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, yeah, but you got to realize too, like the reason why I was like on your ass earlier is because you were just learning, and you're
Yeah,
auto margining without a fucking without a plan. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Now
yeah,
you're auto margining, but you have so now that over the last 6 months now using the indicators, focusing on that shit every time we're talking about trades. Now you're at a higher level. So now when you use auto margin, you actually you have a plan now. You have a structure, so you're not at
yeah,
risk. So now the auto margin is like, well, if it does go down, it's going to go here because you've already have all these other things lined up, which are basically going to give you 80% more chance to be successful. So before, when you were
yeah,
auto margining, you had a 20% of success. This is fucking
yeah,
terrible. And eventually that's going to burn your ass, and it fucking did. It got you
yeah.
for,
No, it did, it did,
you know
it
what I'm
did so
saying?
many times, so many times.
Yeah. Now you have a fucking when you're auto margining now, it's with a structure. Now you're auto margining and it's like, okay, but you have 80% possibility in your favor. So now the odds of winning are way better, and now you'll see more wins than losses. Before it was just fucking it's a coin flip. It was just fucking in the wind, and shit could go bad real
Yeah,
quick. And now when you're doing it, you're like, yeah, I know. Now you're confident, like, all right, it'll go here, it'll get here. I have all these moons are gonna hit everything. Now you're just
yeah,
now you know now you know what's happening. So now I don't.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like now I'm not worried. Like okay, whatever. Like, I guess it didn't go my way. Or sometimes when I do it, like, or I forget to put the stop loss, or sometimes I notice that the stop loss don't hit, and then so I don't lose the position or any losses. It goes down, but it's not that. So what I do is just do that. I just wait for the right confirmations. Actually, I will wait for the second green moon, and then that's when I will just enter or double down on the position, and then that's it. I'll be out. You know,
yeah. And that's
that's
the difference. That's why I always tell guys, like, listen, when you're getting into something, the first thing we're doing is everything I'm telling you is not to stop you from making money. It's to stop you
yeah,
from losing fucking money. Because when you figure the shit out, you're going to say to yourself, man, if I had that 50 fucking grand, right? It's like, it's a game changer. Everyone does
yeah.
that shit. Guys will lose fucking 10, 20, 30 grand. I'm like, why are you putting so much in there right now?
That was me.
Yeah, right now when we're kind of like you're just learning. So get yourself in a position where once you have a plan and you've got an idea of what you're doing, then you go into the spot where you're like, okay, I'm here now. You're gonna want that fucking money because once you learn to turn 1,000 into 1,000, you're gonna be like, shit, man. If I had that 20,000 I gave away, I'd be fucking.
Yeah,
I'm real good right now. And that's why I was saying, like the auto margin is like, man, you don't want to use auto margin when you're first learning what the fuck you're doing. Now
yeah,
you have an ideal, you see what's coming, you know that the RSIs are set, you know your moons are coming, and now you're auto margining with an 80% chance of win versus a fucking 10 or 20%. It's a big difference.
yeah. No, and I still don't. I try not to use it. And even if let's say my position is into the positive, I automatically just take it off.
Yeah.
Try to. Sometimes I forget about it and I don't do it. But when it goes into the money, then I just remove the auto margin. Put the stop loss out of positive. Or if it's too close, then I just do like 20%. 10%, and that's it. But yeah, sometimes I just forget to take the auto margin, and the stop loss will not field, and then you're in the that problem. But but like you said, it's once you know that it's somebody needs to buy to sell lower, right?
Yeah.
There needs to be buyers to sell lower, and the other way around. There need to be a lot of people selling for people to buy. So no matter what, it won't just go down, 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 down. it's gonna be buying at some point. So that's when you just need to, you just gotta wait for that point. At that point, and then just just buy in, and then
Hmm.
that's it. You're out.
Yeah, just a little bit of patience, man. And that's why
Yeah.
I was kind of like, everybody has their journey. It's like the reason why we have, when I talk to guys in the beginning, I'm like, yo, listen, if you can't turn $50 into 500, then you don't need to be trading more than that. You need to really fucking hone your skills. And sometimes it just comes down to where you find your one, two, three, right? And that's why over the last couple months I've seen you really find your section, right? So I know when a guy gets it when he's posting ideals of trades, because then I can look at the trade and go, oh, okay, he's playing the 15 minute, he's playing the 1 hour, right? It lets me know that you're finding a fucking step by step where you can say, okay, one, two, three, one, two, three, one, two, three. And then I can help you fix the things you do wrong because now I know what you're doing. That's why I always tell guys, post your entries, post the trades you're looking at, post your 1 hours. So at least I can understand, like, if you can't find a system, then use the basic 1 hour system, and then you can develop the smaller 15-minute time frames into your 1 hour and learn how to get into the 1 hour faster. But you first have to understand the 1 hour basic. Once you have the basic under your belt, that applies to the 15-minute, the 30, and the 45. It's just earlier entries, right? And now you just have to learn, okay, I'm being a little more patient. Where's my pullback? Okay, I'm looking for volume. And then once you start putting that shit together, you're like, oh, okay, here we go. Now you start locking in. It's like boom, boom, boom. It's like, all right, now I'm getting what I want. I don't have to be, I don't need a lot of, risk here. I can do the basics and I'm seeing results, results, results. And now I'm starting to learn, now how do I find runners? How do I find this? Then that's the next part of everything as you build forward. But that's where guys get confused, is like they're always pushing in the beginning. It's like you have to learn first. Once you learn and you have that structure, now you're like, okay, now I'm growing. Now I see this, this, and this. All right, now I know why I wait for that second run. Now I know to wait for that second moon. Okay, and that's where that pump is. And then once you realize your entries always come back and sometimes get even lower, you're like, man, I'm fucking entering too early. Right? And that's where, if you just eliminate half of that shit, that's game changer. If you eliminate half of the fucking early entries and make them good entries, then you eliminate fucking half of your losses. And you increase your fucking wins, because if you wait, you get a 20% or even a 50% better position. Sometimes 100. And then it goes right back to your original entry, and guess what? You just made 100 fucking percent. And it didn't even move. It just went back to where you were going to enter originally. Less risk, more money.
Yeah, that's kind of where just not playing still with the law, because I just gotta build confidence just little by little. Still gotta, like you said, just gotta need to fix a little 20% more of the bad habits that I do, which it'll make me more profitable. So one, it'll be not jumping still, try not to jump, try to get more out of it.
Yeah, I mean, because look here, if we wanted more, we asked for better prices, right? We went from 46.10, you got in at 45.18.
Yeah.
Cost average buying at 45.18 to 45.30 that whole time, and you're almost at 46 cents. So just in that little time period right there, you're talking about, I mean, I did a 75x. I came in later than you at a 45.65, right? So I'm up 40%. So for you, that's 80. You're probably already up 160%.
186.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do you see, like, that's,
Yeah, I didn't buy that much. Yeah, just bought a little bit because I thought it was gonna. Yeah, half of the orders, 40, 45, 15, 14, 10. I have a bunch of orders there pending, but
yeah,
who knows if it's gonna go back to it.
yeah, I mean, we still have, like I said, we're still, like, remember, we still need a 15-minute green moon. I have an alert set on that. I haven't got it yet. I'm still waiting for the 1 hour green moon. You see what I'm saying? But now we have a strong base. So now when you see this pump come in, right? You've seen it pumped up, it hit 45.92. Now we can sit back and go, okay, every time this pulls back a little, I can pick up a little, right? We're heading towards the moon, the 15 minutes resetting. Now we know anytime it drops below like a 45.90 plus, we can pick up, a couple bucks here and there. Because remember, the trade that we're waiting for is still a 15-minute green moon, and then we still need the 1 hour. So the trade that's actually going to happen, is down the road, right? So there's still going to be pullbacks. Now I know that every time it pulls back, I want to get an entry. So I'm setting something at like a 45.70, right? Looking in that area. And I'm still waiting for everything to come around. I have my 15-minute, coming, the 30 minutes bouncing, but more than likely they're going to bounce up here, push to something like 46.20, and then all of a sudden they'll go the other way and we'll be back at 45.50. You know what I mean?
How much do you do per trade? How much you put in and yourself to do per trade?
Yeah, so when I'm actually like trading, right? If I'm not, doing any recordings or anything like that, I'm just trading. So I like to trade about. So I have a $2,000 bag, and I like to get at least 300-400 in on the first entry, and then as it moves, another 300 because I want to have at least five in there, right? And then I get it up to when it starts to develop. I want to get about $1,000 in there. So that way, if it really develops in there, I can get the full 2,000 in there and we can rock. But a lot of times when you have that in there and you're cost average buying, you're protecting yourself for the entries and then better entries. So 500 to 1,000.
That's good.
That's all you really need. I mean, if you're getting, I mean, there's no real. I mean, if you're getting your 50%, I mean, so the goal is like every time my goal is basically to crack 500 to 1,000 bucks a trade, right? And if you get a good trade and get a runner in there, right, you can crack 200-300% on there and easily take a couple grand in on there. But it's a very like, there's no need to rush because once you find your level of okay, how much do I need to make, right? Once you have that in there, you stay in that zone, and then you have days where you just crush it, and then you're like, oh, okay. And then you have other days where you just, waiting, being patient, you're just taking in your number, and you're like, oh, it was a good day, right? That way, you're never like, you never feel like you're chasing a trade, you're just enjoying. Because I do know, like, as we move forward, eventually this market will go in our favor, whether it's a complete dump, and then a reset to the bull run. But I know when those days happen, when the ETFs get denied or whatever, or if they get approved, we're going to see a big ass Bitcoin pullback. I know we'll make a shitload on that. You know what I'm saying? So by wait, yeah, I mean, so Bitcoin always has to pull back to the trend line, right? So if that comes on the 15th or whatever, Bitcoin will pull back to 40,000, maybe 36,000. And then after that, from there we get into a bull run. Man, we haven't even seen that. These numbers are nothing right now, bro. Wait until March and all that, and as this year goes on, wait until people start making money. And you see that fucking market cap go from 1.6 to 2.6. I mean, we'll have trades, you put $1,000 in, it'll turn into 60 grand. I mean, we're not even there yet. So I mean, to me it's like just waiting for the basics. Why push something when you're just kind of like waiting for the good times? Like right now, we're just buying in the basics. So it's a good time to make profits and then buy like the coins that are going to do well, like Solana. I mean,
Okay,
Solana.
just give me 1 minute, okay? Hold on. Just 1 minute. Oh, it says my wife calling me. It's ready to the tennis. Let me give you a call back, okay?
Yeah, brother.
Sorry, real quick.
Yeah, bro. Later.